Hello, a very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise. It is this lovely Friday morning, the 22nd day of November. By this time next month, it will be 3 days of Christmas, and the turkey and chicken will be in bigger trouble. Good morning, everybody. I'm Train Bellinoso. Welcome.
Well, that's the prayer that we have. But before we get there, it's my favorite day of the week, Friday. Yes, thank God it's Friday. Good morning and welcome. How many degrees is it this morning in Abuja?
It's just 26 degrees centigrade here, and kind of 40%.
It is a just. Do you get that often? 26 degrees in the Federal Capital Territory this morning.
Yep.
By afternoon, you'll know why people worship the sun in some places.
Okay. Oh boy. But yeah, I mean, for those kind of seasons and festivities and relaxing, freezing temperatures, you can go to Gara Waterfalls, if you will. Sometimes it could give you that soothing effect, if you will. So sometimes all of these things will bring them to you, so you don't just have your minds decluttered from all of the policies, the vagaries of the economy that seem to hit you whichever way you turn. Just take some time off when you can.
In all honesty, I needed to see this morning.
It has a soothing effect.
Seriously, just staring at it right now.
Take it all in.
Yeah.
Take it all easy. Just calm down. You live to fight another day. It doesn't all have to be done today. Just
a part of me just wants to keep quiet, and just let people take it in, Just watch the water.
The other parts will work.
Yeah. But I'm sure they'll be wondering what's going on. Is this dead air? Anyways, you've seen it in all its beauty and its glory, the Gara Waterfalls. Why don't you put it on your to-do if you're going to be around Abuja this season? And December is an excellent time to visit Gara Waterfalls, located in Niger State. I'm hoping that the governor would prioritize fixing the road from Abuja. Well, they say it's a federal road, but we can't continue like this, really. Yeah. We can't continue like this. This distinction, this dichotomy between federal and state roads, especially if it will benefit your state, especially if your state will stand to benefit. It will be in the interest of the state to either put pressure on the federal government or to, do it and then wait till whenever it is that they will be compensated.
I just said they will do it.
I just said they will do it, so we'll wait and see, what Edo does. But in the meantime, this is one place that is difficult to access because the roads there are not exactly in excellent shape. If you're going to go there with tourists that have come from outside of Nigeria, I tell you that some parts of that road, you'll be embarrassed. You'll be very embarrassed, to say, you mean, this is a part of, I wish we could just fly there and land there and, ignore all of this. But, going by road is one of the beauties. So let me not take away from this. I'm just trying to say that, the Niger State government does have a lot in its kitty, and I believe that it can leverage on it. It can do something about making sure that people prioritize seeing this kind of place, as part of something that they would like to do for their holiday. It's inexpensive. It's been given by nature. It's a part of their country, so why not? And people would really love it when they get there. Why not?
Yeah, because, it's, sometimes you just think it's very basic, but it turns out that, they're not like that. You would have thought that states have perhaps sceneries like this, or a typology of a scenery that you can highlight and say, this is a tourist center that, should rise far above any form of negative news that might come to the state at any point in time. Let some people know that part about the states.
And you know what, Chimole? Another thing we really need to fix is security. We really cannot say that enough. So let me give you an instance. There is this really lovely resort, and people go there, this lovely resort around Zuma Rock. So this group of investors took the risk. They decided to build a resort very close to Zuma Rock. It's excellent. It's beautiful. And it's beautiful for playing golf as well. But guess what? There is this security advisory that, you know, I guess the target market will be the very elite community in Abuja, diplomatic community, which is very big because we have a lot of embassies here that have both Nigerian and non-Nigerian staff. We have the UN house, which is here. And these people have, of course, security experts who give them advice from time to time, you know, on where it's safe, where it's not safe, what mode of transport will be safe. Some areas have been designated not safe. And so staff get that advisory. And as such, you find out that their businesses are hampered as a result of this advisory. I think that state governments need to be we cannot be asking for investors to come in. People eventually put in their money, and at the end of the day, you know, advisories like that spoil the market for them. I think that they really need to work closely with these people to see how it is. It's the same thing for the train. You know, you'll be surprised how many people would go by road if they have to go anywhere because they have advisories telling them not to use the train. And wouldn't they be correct? Because when you look at what happened, you know, with the train last time and how long it took for us to get the hostages back, it really, you know, leaves a very, very sour taste in the mouth, generally.
Well, maybe this is where the National Security Advisor will begin to look at those advisories and see what they can do to ensure they are to the benefit of the country. And the SSS, I think the new DG is one of them. He rose from the ranks, so it appears as though, I don't know what to say, if he's gone professional and not political. Some say the political ones are the ones you see all over the place, SS here and things like that, but who knows if the approach has changed. But I think there's opportunity to also focus on the job and ensure that things are done right, and advisories like this that will hamper businesses are looked into and ensure that it's on the contrary to make it all better. Okay, so we'll serve you that part. You can go check it out and decide, even if you can't get to that particular one. There's several other areas, wherever you are, you can even create it within your own space. It's about that. Mentally or otherwise, you can do that. I tell you, it could help you. All right. Arewa Consultative Forum, they've been in the news for some time. I think somebody is taking the fall now. Let's see if we could let you listen to when he made this statement. Little did he know that there was going to be more to it. So maybe we should listen to him for a bit.
Understanding the parallel state of Arewa's glaring challenges, the policies of the current federal government has continued to make matters worse, with little indications that needed sensitivity to the precarious existential conditions of Arewa people are important. Succinctly stated, economic reforms, while indeed desirable, should not impoverish the same people that they are meant to serve, as the people may not be alive to reap the benefits of the putative benefits. In view of the above, the meeting resolved as follows. It calls on the ACF calls on the federal government under the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to review, reassess, and reevaluate and reorder the direction of its economic policies with a view to giving it a needed human face. 2. Calls on the governors of the northern states to adopt a strong coordinated approach to policy planning and implementation as this relates to security, education, skills acquisition, agricultural production, and health. 3. Calls on the federal government to be receptive to criticisms and suggestions, not only in line with the principles of democracy, but also because they improve, not retard, the policy process for the ultimate benefit of the people.
Well, the ACF chairman appears to have gotten himself in a little bit of trouble. We'll tell you, he says, as a result of unauthorized statements, he has been suspended. So that takes us to the dailies this morning. So let's take you to the papers and you see why. Have a look.
Let's
go ahead and have a look at some of the dailies here this morning. Vanguard newspaper, terrorism, presidency mom, DHQ thrilled over arrest of Simon Ekpa, 4 others. And then look at Blueprint newspaper, 2027 presidency. You can't decide Tinubu's fate. Arewa think tank knocks ACF. And then you can see some of the riders here this morning. Shekarau-led LND wants North reclaim lost glory. Woos state governors, lawmakers, others on vision. And then beneath that list story, DHQ to finish government. Extradite Ekpa to face justice in Nigeria. This Nigerian newspaper, reps throw out 6-year single-term bill. Veto legislation seeking to alter 4-year term for president, governors. National Assembly proposes life jail for drug offenders and traffickers. Beneath that list story, Biafra agitator Ekpa, others to be extradited from Finland to Nigeria. Daily Times here this morning. PDP greater than Wike Damagun, ascribed to NAS caucus, assures party will bounce back. Nigerian Tribune, State Police, Kwara, Kebbi, Adamawa, FCT get 1 week to submit positions. NEC sets up committee to deepen participation in electrification, the paper reports this morning. Leadership Friday, Tinubu to world leaders. We won't raise taxes on vulnerable Nigerians, says his administration prioritizing the poor. Governors to take position on tax bills. We strongly support reforms, ascribed to IMF. Look at Nigerian News Direct here. The focus is on economic reforms. Nigerians now understand the need for our reforms, ascribed to Tinubu. 6 IMF support for economic stability, reduce hardship. Your loan burden is bone-crushing, hurting Nigerians, Atiku tells Tinubu. The paper reports that one as well today. Daily Independent, Kwara, Adamawa, Kebbi, FCT delayed decision on state police. Look at the riders here. NEC gives states FCT 1 week to submit report. Raises committee on national electrification to check grid collapses. RMAFC agency that sets salary structures for public officers broke. And then the Guardian is focusing on dwindling sports fortunes here, and it says grassroots neglects mediocrity strip Nigeria of youthful population edge. And then Daily Trust, IPOP, military seek extradition as Finland jails Ekpa, the paper report here this morning. ACF suspends Chairman Osuman over unauthorized statements. And then to the Business Day here this morning. The Business Day reports Nigeria lures investors with capital market reform bills. And those are your headlines this morning.
But I guess you already found out why that the ACF chairman could be in trouble on the front page of Daily Trust newspapers, as you did highlight, Chamberlain. ACF suspends. Yeah, that's Mohammed, I beg your pardon, Maman Mike Osuman. Yeah. The board of trustees and said, look, he didn't consult anybody. It was not a collective decision. That commentary he made that the North will support a northern candidate. He says, no, that is your personal opinion, and as such, you're on suspension. So, 2027, yes, it might be a talking point, but they just thought that they won't have it. Is it early days yet?
For what?
I would think that is
a huge mistake.
Well, so what I know, I mean, politicians are always thinking about the next elections immediately the last ones are concluded. But isn't it early days, you know, to start talking? Because the administration has barely celebrated 2 years in office, and you know the whisperings around it should not even arise. I think that if it was suspended for, you know, even having conversations around that and bringing it to the public for, so that's alone, maybe he
but you know what they do? Whatever project or whatever thing that they do, they always do it to project as their scorecard for the people. Say, look, yes, you elected us, but these are the things that we have done and the reasons why you should elect us again. So all of those is always a build-up from the get-go. Oh, the build-up.
Indeed.
To the next.
So yes, indeed. But in the meantime, you know, it's early days yet.
Ideally, yes.
Early days yet.
Politically, no.
I think that journalists have a duty,
yes,
to, you know, discourage that sort of discussion. Even if people are having it wherever it is they're having it, it should not make front pages unless somebody says something really outrageous that threatens perhaps, you know, 2027, and maybe we need to ensure that that kind of person, you know, comes to account for what it is that they've said. But otherwise, all of those kinds of conversations should be discouraged for now, at least. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that journalists have a duty to do that. But, I mean, that's not what's catching my fancy this morning. What is catching my fancy? And I'm only going to be asking one question on it. You see the story here. Reps reject bill on 6-year single tenure for president, governors. The story is on the front page of Vanguard newspapers. We've been at this issue for a long time, this issue of a 6-year single tenure. Because some people think, look, it doesn't make sense. Just basically what Chamberlain, you know, was highlighting now. You barely have elected them into office, and they're already beginning to think about the next elections. And sometimes that is all the motivation they have for whatever it is that they're doing. Sometimes decisions that need to be taken, that could be difficult, are delayed, are deferred, because nobody wants to lose the next election. So there have been questions as to how do you hold leaders accountable, because some people will say that is usually the incentive for leaders to perform because they want a second term. The question is, when they eventually get the second term, do they go to sleep? So whatever it is we do in the second term to make sure that we still hold them accountable, can't it be done in the first term of 6 years, the single term of 6 years? That has been the question. But then you now see here that the House of Reps have rejected a bill on a 6-year single tenure for president and governors. And we understand that this bill was sponsored by a lawmaker from Imo State, Ugochinyere. I'm trying to remember his first name now. Honorable Ugochinyere. The big question is, I'm asking, you know, because he also does have, I don't know how it is between himself and his colleagues, but when you look at some of the things that he said on national television and causes that he might have sponsored, you have to ask the question, did they reject the bill or did they reject the person who sponsored the bill? That's the only question I have to ask this morning. Chamberlain.
Well, the question I have to ask is on the front page of News Direct this morning, and what I read, I thought for a few seconds I was delayed into taking the next one because my mind won't move on so fast. Look at that, for instance. It says, economic reforms. Nigerians now understand the need for our reforms. Ascribe to Tinubu.
Do they?
I thought,
it's a big question. Do they?
Okay, maybe I might have missed something. So I thought to bring it to you all.
You know, it will be interesting, you know, Chamberlain. I still look forward to a conversation with the president, you know, because we can't just be having this one-sided communication from the, and I don't know if it will qualify as communication, because communication is that somebody speaks and another person, you know, speaks back. But I understand that we have to take a break at this moment.
All right. So, by the way, talk to us about that headline. If you are part of those Nigerians who understand it, please help us explain to us. We'd like to understand as well. But we'll be back in just a moment. Stay on with us.
Lawmakers in the Green Chamber convened to wrap plenary for the week. A constitution amendment bill for a single 6-term tenure for the president and state governors fails to scale second reading. The bill, sponsored by Honorable Ikenga Ugochinyere, also sought to provide that all elections be held on a single day. However, another constitution amendment bill for the creation of a new state scaled second reading, closely followed by a bill to increase the number of FCT High Court judges and another seeking to further empower the Minister of Works.
My bill seeks to alter the constitution to create a new state, which is Ibadan and Oyo Ogbomoso. The proposal is to make Ibadan a state. It's not just a constitutional restructuring, but a forward-thinking move that will address several socio-political and economic concerns.
I rise for a bill for an act to amend the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, Number of Judges Act, Cap H6, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, to provide for increase in the number of judges in the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja.
What I'm saying is that we need to deliberately create paths along our road that will accommodate utilities and accommodate, give good experience for travelers. What I'm saying is the Ministry of Works should make provision. It saddens my heart that, imagine us traveling 20, 30 kilometers and we realize that there is no provision at all.
The House then adopts a motion on the need to investigate the activities of anti-corruption and transparency units in all MDAs in the country.
Aware that the unit is supposed to be watchdog or anti-corruption division service with the responsibilities of monitoring the activities of federal government, ministries, departments, and agencies, and reporting any matter that is regarded as corrupt practice to the ICPC for further actions. Worried that despite these circulars and efforts, corrupt practice still persists in most MDAs, and if not checked, corruption will continue forever.
In the meantime, the House is to investigate age falsification in the civil service and has also resolved to invite the head of service for an investigative hearing. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
All right, so let's get down to this. Honorable Tajuddin Yusuf joins us here. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, sir.
So we've seen you taking a break from lawmaking duties. So that's why he's pretty relaxed. Not just this morning. He says it's been like that for a while, actually. So in case you see him on the road, are they going to see you like this on the road or what?
Definitely.
Okay. So this proposed legislation, which has failed in the House of Representatives, was supposed to be single-year tenure for presidents, governors, and some other members. They say it was supposed to alter Section 76, 116, 132, and 136 of the 1999 Constitution. So, yes, it's not a new idea, so to speak, but perhaps because I know that you were in the House when this came through the last time out.
Yeah.
But this time, who knows? Maybe you should give us that background from your understanding why, what might have happened, how we got here where it failed.
I think we, as a people, a nation, we do not stay enough to go deep into items or issues or policies that come up. We just do the right for movement and move to other things. 2013 or 14 was the first time this idea was mooted. And I think the president then, Goodluck Jonathan, and some, very, very senior citizens came up with that idea. Initially, the suspicion among Nigerians, political elite, was that he wanted to extend his tenure to benefit himself. So he was just elected in 2011. By 2013, he took up a single-year term. If that come up, it means that he does not even do the second term of another election in 2015. We'll have a tenure of about 6 years by then. So there's this suspicion about everything that comes about. And I think the reason why when they came up with this idea of single-year term is because of suspicion. The North, the South, the East, and what have you. I am of the opinion that that's the way to go for now.
Before we move a little further now, could you just talk to us about the mindset at the time? If you say the members were suspicious, were they that, let me use the word, short-sighted? Because, the bill is before you. You read it based on the facts before you and put your suspicion wheresoever and take a look from what we see. Because you are lawmakers. You can banish or perish any suspicious thought by the process of making the laws.
A lawmaker is not insulated from his environment. And don't forget that he's a politician and that the views of his people, perception of his people
have a tell on what decision
his people, the bill is not before his people.
Don't forget that in 7th Assembly, then we went back to our constituency with this bill. Every member was made to go back to his federal constitution and present this opinion before them. And well,
an informed perspective.
That is why I feel that what we need more before we go into pushing this bill is to further educate the people more. Don't forget there's an alteration of the constitution. If you can't pass a national assembly without the state assemblies. The intention of what happened yesterday was for that bill to be qualified to be listed as for consideration. So the House and the Senate will pass. You go to 36 states of the Federation. 2/3 of those states must endorse before you alter the Constitution. So it cannot just pass as National Assembly bill. It's an alteration of the Constitution. So what failed yesterday was that it's not even qualified to be listed amongst items
before it took off.
Yes, that's what
they say, dead in arrival.
So if you know that you will still go that far to states, you need the buy-in of every stakeholder. Just passing a National Assembly does not make it a law yet.
So what? They deny the people of even an opportunity to decide whether they want it or not.
To shut down.
In the name of suspicion.
So, whilst, yes, we do remember that the bill itself was greeted with suspicion in the first the first time it came up. The fact that it came up again means that some people do believe that there is merit in this. You believe in it? I'm sure, I have spoken in favor of it before. The debate is ongoing. My views might change from time to time, but I have argued vehemently for this bill before now. I'm just a little curious, because we know, you talked about people buying in. I asked a question, and this is not to impugn the integrity of Honorable Ugochinyere, who is the sponsor of the bill. But we do know that there have been back and forth between himself and members of the PDP, whose caucus he's from. Some have even asked that he be disciplined before now. I'm wondering, do you think that it was the bill itself that was rejected, or do you think that maybe they did not like the face of the person sponsoring the bill, which could also affect its fortunes? How does a person's likability, for instance, affect whether a bill will do well or not?
It does a lot. I don't have the privilege of being on the floor right now again. I left the floor a year plus ago, but I was there for 12 years. So by implication, I had the privilege of knowing the floor management and the dynamics. In fact, there are days that you come in with a very, very important motion or what have you. You look at the mood of the house and you will know it. That your person or the mood of the house will not favor your bill. So it's not impossible that those things affected it.
It doesn't matter how good.
No matter how good, if the mood of the house does not favor certain things. In fact, you are advised, a lot of time you hear the speaker say, approach the chair. Maybe your item is coming, and they are studying it now and feel like this is a good bill, or this is a good one. Why don't you hold on?
So read the room.
Read the room.
Emotional intelligence.
And you have to have, if you have this kind of a bill, it require a lot of input. I had about 35 members that's are in the body. They actually meet. They reach out to other blocks. And they're on the floor of the House of Render at House privilege to be in. You have different blocks on the floor. There are those who just need to make you a statement and make you understand that you cannot bully us or what have you. They shut down your bill. So you must reach out to such wings and educate them. Look at what I'm trying. Okay, look at the one scenario, 7th Assembly. There was this misspelled of a local government name, Ibarapa in Oyo State. Ibarapa local government. It was misspelled in the Constitution. For you to correct that spelling, you need to amend the Constitution. You cannot just go and change the name. And some members were misinformed and told that it's an attempt to increase the number of local governments in and they shut it down.
And those guys were actually elected members.
Shut it down. So you need to, one, are we as legislators equipped enough with the research we need to do our work? And when they are available, do we take advantage of this research?
It sounds like a joke, though.
So when you get to the floor and the matter comes, are you equipped enough to tackle it?
Let me ask.
Yeah.
Will it help?
Yeah.
In any way whatsoever? If, for instance, they say the qualification for lawmakers there is what? I think it's not school cert or something like that. If it's a little higher, would it be a little more perceptive? Would it change the mindset and say, okay, well, look, we can actually look at the bill. We've heard lawmakers say categorically on national TV, I've not read this bill, but we don't like it.
It is not about the educational background.
So what is it?
It's about, I talked about the different cleavages and different things that happen in Nigeria. Power, for now, is seen as the most important commodity and the means to get things to your area in Nigeria. If you are in power from social region, it's expected that at that particular time, your people enjoy the largesse. Until we understand that power should be used for the general good of all, irrespective of where you come from. So if Mr. A is there, you heard the story. In fact, if he's not even doing anything bad yet, some other group are already prepared because they want power to come to their head. And they consciously make sure that whatever you do is attacked. So that I tell people that why the reasons I support this bill is that you go into office as an executive for 4 years. It's a 4 year still. First 1 year, you are learning the road, trying to get this place. The second year, you are about to work, they are reminding you of next election. So by implication, in that first 4 years, you have maybe 1.5 years of efficient and real work. By the time you are finished election second term, you are settling to bed, people are reminding you are leaving office. So in 8 years, you might not have, I'm not talking about other clients, my study of Nigeria executives, political situation, you might not have more than 2.5 to 3 years of real work for the people. And imagine the homogous amount that are going to electioneering in Nigeria. So that's why part of the reason me I'm supporting this is that, okay, speak this thing. You know you have a single term. There are certain decisions that you want to take in your first tenure. They will start reminding you the third year that election is coming. And people will deliberately use that to manipulate you and slow you down from taking that decision. So if you know you have a single term, you're not coming back. So if you want to write your name in gold and be remembered that as somebody who came, who did your best, fine.
So, there are those who will say, look, and I have heard this argument before, that there must be reward for people who actually do good work. That there must be an incentive
to make them
do something, better.
I'm with the opinion that it should not be a permanent thing. The single term thing, for me, I believe we are in a space now where there's a lot of mistrust. So that for the next maybe 30 years, let's have a single term tenure of a president. So a president will go around the geopolitical zone. You know that if he's leaving zone A, he's going to zone B. The Nigerian National Association of Nigerian Students have this. I don't know much about NANS again. I was in NANS. And we had the rotational presidents that go around Nigeria. We have 4 zones in Nigeria. Zone A, B, C, D. You know the NANS Secretariat is moving from zone A to zone B. So nobody contests from other zones. I was in University of Georgia, which was zone C. So when it is turned on our zone, it is schools within that environment. So I have to breach this power, the whole power today, because I feel that a lot will have been achieved if this mistrust is reduced. So I don't think it should be a permanent thing. That it should be a single term for that. No. Plan for the next maybe 30 years, how many years?
How does it help continuity of programs and policies? Because we also know that sometimes you do need a pretty decent gestation period for certain things to, manifest. How does it help for those who actually plan? I don't think that 8-year window is more ideal.
I am not in any way condemning the 8-year window. I'm saying because of our peculiarity of our situation right now. And again, when we're talking about plan, there should be a long-term plan for a nation. We used to have 10 years plan and what have you. We used to have a situation where those days, unfortunately, I'm going to refer to the military era, when you don't just come in and begin to think of what you want to do. There are certain things on ground you need to follow. So we need to get back there. That will sit down as a nation and say, in the next 10 years, let's have a policy on health and what have you. So when you come in, you just pick from where the other is. Look at the power situation. But 15 years ago, we were told about thermal station being built and what have you. About 10 years ago, we were talking about solar farms. What are we talking about now? So there's this policy somersault every day. So the investment you put in 15 years ago, you are not building on it. So how do you get results? So I think we should more focus on having a long-term plan. And again, that's why I come to our political parties. We don't have a political parties yet where you can define this is the policy of so party. So that when you are voting for this party, you are voting on the basis of their policies you think benefits you.
But it's not always been this bad. Previous republics, you have politicians who were forthright.
Yes.
At least they thought properly. They were not led by the mood, so to speak.
Unfortunately, where we are, ethnicity, religion play a lot in the pattern of voting in Nigeria. Right now. Religion and ethnicity play a lot. Most Nigerians don't vote on the basis of the economic policy of the government. These two
politicians leverage on that. The fault lines, they dig deeper so that they can keep themselves in office.
If you do something that you get hard bond, you definitely think twice. But if you do it and it's usually result. So it's about what are the expectations of our people? Are we genuinely looking for roads? Are we genuinely asking those questions? Or we say those things on TV to get the mileage we want, but we'll go back, we also have pecuniary benefits.
Some people will say that while this might have had, and I know I have asked whether the bill itself was rejected or whether I was sponsoring the bill that was rejected, I must put into consideration the fact that there were a number of other people who co-sponsored the bill, but I guess his name was the lead name there. Yeah. But I'm wondering, when you look at the merits and demerits of the bill, some people say, when should such a bill, assuming it was going to be considered, when it will be implemented? You have suggested a 30-year period. Some people will say that 30-year period is not enough, because if you're looking at the fact that we're 6 geopolitical zones, you need at least a 36-year period for everybody to, take a turn at being president. And I don't know how that will work even at the level of the states. Some people will say, when should such a thing kick in? That's the implementation. Because if you say, the current president is not going to benefit from what it is that we are talking about, there'll be questions as to, will he be willing to do a 4-year single tenure? Exactly. Wouldn't that be cheating?
That is why I talk about consensus building. If I have my way, I will even say, let it come as an executive bill. Let the process of galvanizing opinion be done. Looking like 3-4 years before you present this bill.
You say executive bill. Did they say that they were interested in such a bill in the first place? What if they're the ones who killed it?
Killed it. It's not possible. I say, if I have my way, let each block come up with opinion about this bill. Let's now have a defined period to say. And again, we can say, okay, we can start when the president is in the second term. There won't be seen as being denied this privilege. So maybe you finish the next election and the government is the president, you can start the process and know that it's kick off from there.
There was also to give himself a third term.
No, he's not qualified to run again at that particular time. He won't be qualified.
The mood can say something.
But sincerely, I don't know how. But the idea of this then, and still again, is because of the different challenges. Where you have been on the floor and I look at the kind of some arguments and where it's coming from, because of suspicion. Look at the tax reform bill. I am not an expert in tax, I read economics, but I know a bit of it. I know that it is not as bad as being described, but because there is a suspicion about certain things, some people have not read it. And again, the fact that the government economic policy to me has not been the best, because he took decision before looking at the best way to ameliorate the suffering of the people. I'm for subsidy removal. I'm not for it to be taken out before taking of CNG and all those things. I expect them to have a period of 1 year, subsidy will go, but look at the subsidies you are bringing in to cushion the effect. But you took out subsidy and now start bringing this in. And economics is defined as study of human behavior. You bring Thomas Malthus's theory, a British. My mother does not think that way. My mother does not know interest rate. But my mother understands that if transfer from year to year increases, she increases her goods. And an average British person or European know that if there's CNG gas in your car, you cannot charge like petroleum. But in Nigeria, go to the bank. CNG cars will charge you.
CNG or not.
They will charge you the same price as petrol. So you must put the consideration, this not those PowerPoint and IMF positions. Come back home, look at our behavior, and tailor your policy to make sure you maximize the benefit that's therein.
Talk a little bit more about this tax, which you mentioned, because the circumstances or dynamics of that appears to be different from this bill that failed before the House, in the sense that tax, that amendment which they were seeking, it's not going to go all the way to the state houses of assembly.
Yeah.
It stops within the National Assembly.
Yeah.
Because if you were going to go to the states, that's where the governors can say, no, we want this, and chances are that they likely will have their way. But in this case, much as the governors have said, we don't want certain things, but we've heard some lawmakers say, no, this particular one, we will pass it, we won't care what the governors say. How does that play out?
I think the governors and stakeholders who have anything about the tax reform should go into the debate, get into the National Assembly and make sure that they make their contribution. But I don't think the bill should be thrown out in entirety. That's my opinion. There are areas of the bill that I've looked at and I don't think it's as bad as the personal income tax for individuals with income less than 800,000 monthly. You are not paying tax again, but still you pay. Small businesses with 25 million naira downward pay tax now, but if upgrade to 50, you have to hit 50 million naira annual exchange. So there are some things there. So if the area I think is controversial is the area of VAT. People are looking at it that, VAT should not be derivation, should be consumption, which I agree. The law has tried to amend it, but people are not yet satisfied with it. Give an example.
And that's what they say they've corrected for this new tax reform bill.
So when people just say, kill it and say, let it go to the floor and let our governors and Nigerians get used to being part of law-making process.
So the thing is,
public hearing.
Explain a little bit more to the people. So part of what I was also trying to find out is that when the governors, when you say they should get involved with this, usually, how does it usually play out? When bills need to go to states and when bills don't need to go to states, can lawmakers themselves say this bill will pass and the governors will not have any influence on the lawmakers when the bill doesn't have to come to the state assemblies?
The governors are governing states and lawmakers are from states.
Yes,
so by implication, my brother, I can tell you that 70 to 80% of lawmakers defer to their governors.
Okay.
See, I can tell you that.
70%.
So, yes.
So if the governors say,
maybe
that bill.
So what I'm trying to say is that the governors should get the lawmakers and get people who know about tax laws to sit down. Because what the tax bills are trying to do is to harmonize some of the tax bills. Even local government, I don't like the idea of traveling in Nigeria and everywhere some young guys just block the road and be asking for certain levy and taxes. So we're trying to harmonize all this. Like that crime.
Pardon me jumping. I understand your point, but I'm trying to find out. You say 70 to 80% of the lawmakers
who are governors
to the governors.
Yes.
So how are you there asking the governors who have said we don't want this bill to get involved when they can tell 70 or 80% of them shoot down this bill?
They can't do that.
If they tell them to shoot it down, then they won't pass.
Believe me, if they work with their lawmakers, they will shut it down. Let me give you
what if the executive says, no, we want this bill passed? And the governors say, no, we don't.
You must have the number of the governors. And don't forget, some governors, I'm sorry, with due respect to somebody, a lot of them, are in such meeting where you say shut it down. They don't believe in that shutdown. They might go behind and do something else. Let me give you a classic example. During 2014, we had this crisis about benchmark of the budget, 2014 budget. Okujiwala was Minister for Finance, the Coordinating Minister. And the chairman of the certain committees in the House met with her, reached an agreement on what should be the ideal benchmark. What the federal government brought and what the House felt should be the benchmark. There was a gap on the floor. When it was supposed to pass MTEF, when it was supposed to pass the MTEF, some governors do call some of their lawmakers who were part of the agreement to vote against it, and they voted against it. I don't want to mention names. We were angry. We felt it was policy taking too far. That was when APC was being galvanized. So they needed to make a statement that certain things failed the National Assembly. Some who could do study walked out of the meeting. He felt that we took this decision together and we is the ideal thing, but because the political bloc outside wanted to do otherwise, they walked out.
Do you think...
And some stayed back, looked at the camera and voted against it.
Sometimes you have to ask, where are the integrity of our lawmakers? But I'm a little curious. Our lawmakers. I'm a little curious. Do you think then that governors could also have had a hand in this? Because, yes, we're just looking at all the scenarios, and I don't want to say we're looking at speculation, but here we are, a single tenor bill, which is also going to affect the governors, by the way. It did not really create a lot of ruckus, but before now, we had listened to a number of, especially young lawmakers, who were quite optimistic that this will be something that will be ideal. At least I have heard some lawmakers, some young lawmakers, who were quite optimistic. So it's a shame to see that, it didn't pass. Do you think that the governors too could have had a hand in it?
I told you that a lot of things play on the floor. The House just reconvened from recess. They're just coming in. Are you sure that these lawmakers reached out to their colleagues adequately about this bill? Two, it's not impossible that governors and other stakeholders who are not comfortable with the bill reach out to their members. And in the mood of the House, it is possible that there was a bill or a motion that was on the floor, and those who are involved in this particular bill play some funny role in the killing or passage of a bill. And people are waiting for them to pay back. That's funny thing about the mood of the House. You could be caught in the emotion or the funny thing that happened at that particular time. However, this is an important legislation. That's what I'm saying. Like, I expect a lot of robust discourse before you bring this to the floor.
I'm wondering, do you think if someone as high up the ranking, and I know ranking is very important for Honorable Go Jr. is a first-time lawmaker. Yeah. I do not know what quality of people, also, what the ranking of those who co-sponsored it are. But do you think that the ranking could have affected this? For instance, if this were a speaker's bill, would it feel like this?
It might, I might not feel. One of the things the ranking does is that experience. You look at the mood, you can stand up and withdraw your bill at the middle of the debate. So you stop it from being killed, so you have time to go and walk. That's what ranking does.
Okay, if it's killed,
yes,
it can't come back again.
This is withdrawn. If it's withdrawn, you can go and walk. You can't. If you notice the direction of the debate, you can stand up and say, you want to withdraw your bill for now to walk on it and come back. So that's what.
Don't kill my bill, please.
That's what ranking does. The experience will help you understand that from 1, 2, 3, speaking on this bill, this direction is going.
Speaking about the mood, if we had, quote unquote, a strong president who says, I want this bill passed, and he knows that the governors too might have an input, and the governors maybe largely don't want this bill passed, and he says, okay, he wants to see how it will play out, and then maybe he has his cards well played or close to his chest, knowing that if over 70% of the governors are going to come for second term, he can decide to say, well, if he has an ace, in the sense that he can wait for them, do you think that they will tell their people to shoot it down?
It's a
lot, yeah.
But don't forget that we had a strong president in Olusegun Obasanjo. He has a strong position he wanted to canvass the National Assembly. Mobilized, I did everything, it was shut down by both chambers. So it's not every time.
Which was that?
The total.
That is not
so don't forget that there are those who were in the caucus meeting, agreed with that total, and came to the floor and spoke against it. That my people, that's what this phrase, my people, rather than say I'm the one rejecting it, say my people say I should say no.
No, but that context is, of course, even though several denials all over the place.
Yes.
But particularly this type of bill is different from that one.
Yes.
That one, of course, even Nigerians too will feel strongly about that. So they might say, no, if they actually find out what's going to happen. But for bills like this one that had to do with perhaps benefiting the people or reforms, wouldn't they have different treatments?
Yes, but don't forget, I mentioned the economic situation right now. An hungry man is an hungry man. Objectivity is not on the table of an hungry man. Most Nigerians will not read the tax report before they ask it to be shut down, if you allow them. So there are certain things, and that's what I'm talking about the mood. A man traveling to Lagos, fare to Lagos used to be between 50 and 60 for him, 100,000 economic flight. Now it's between 500 and 600 for him. And if he's going by road, if he's faring his vehicle...
500, 600, isn't that a bit of an exaggeration?
Go and buy today, except you buy over ahead of time. If you are buying Lagos ticket today, it can't be there than 250,000 naira.
Yeah.
So? So travel.
Hey, that's if you're buying today.
Yes. But if you are buying today, those days around 40, sometimes 50,000.
Okay. Well, don't let me shift your focus.
Buses are coming in that area. Why are they even increasing it? Isn't that for just giving them look, please go on with this.
So what I'm going to say is that if going by a road, you will need to fuel a Camry about 80,000-90,000 naira. So you will need 1.5 years to go. So it's about 300,000 to 400,000 naira. The man is not interested in how good your tax law is. How do I survive now? It's a man who's alive that is about the consequence of a good policy tomorrow. So I think it's affecting the reaction to this bill too.
So what is it that Nigerians miss? Because when Nigerians are watching you in the house, they're watching differently. They are watching from their mindset. Some of them expect you to reason properly. Some of them expect, we elected you to serve us right and do the right thing.
What is reason?
Especially, for instance, the diaspora voting bill. And even when they were amending the laws. They thought, exactly. Guys, this is what we want to move the country forward. And you people are saying you don't have network in your house. Don't you have power? How do you get... So those kind of narratives come through.
Well, you know what is objective is relative. Everybody... Some are looking at it, hope, okay, where we are now, are we sure that votings are not being manipulated electronically? So if we are doing diaspora, who manages it? Those who are in position are scared of those who are in power, and they will use it against them. So those are the things, that's the reason why I'm in support of this single tap. We need to take out this funny suspicion, this idea of if you don't win an election, it means you have failed. No. The people can reject you because certain policies. That doesn't mean they don't like you. So this, then you must not win all elections. So, two, what is our recruitment process of people? How do people get into power in Nigeria? And growing up, there are certain things you cannot do. The society will come on you. Now, I do have those value systems. Are you expected to get there and begin to become those values? No. So it's a reflection of the state of our moral decadence. They are not coming from Niger. They are not coming from Cotonou. They are Nigerians.
Okay, so
they come from our families.
Explain to us too.
Yeah.
Why is it that when politicians are coming from the people, because they are always usually on the same hymn sheet to the people, they support them, they say the same things.
Yeah.
When they get into offices, either maybe as governor, House of Reps, president, whichever way, it's a different kettle of fish entirely. And the narrative that comes from them appears as if, it's not the person that came from us. What usually happens?
A lot. One, some are just marketers who say the right thing to get elected. Some do not know the dynamics of where they are going into. So innocently, they make certain commitment without knowing what they will face there. Three, simply, are the people to genuinely ask the right question? Are you, when I'm contesting an election, okay, do I ask a question? Is there any politician on the election? Go to the platform and say, I'll pay your children's school fees. I'll pay your hospital bill. That when you speak to your wife, she's pregnant, you'll pay the bill. How come the people bring those things to them? So there are a lot of things. You can't pick one in isolation. But however, the major thing is that we have lost certain value system. Those things that you don't even need any law. to question you. Let's say you report people, some of us do growing up to our parents. You say not to put us in check. Even when we are right, you say you are going to report. That's not taking you. But you have such values now. Do parents go to school now to fight a teacher that tried to correct that child? But those days, when you do wrong, after you punish in school, they tell you to report you are begging because it's double punishment. So where are those things? So I don't want to just isolate these behaviors. And these are the people we recruit. A child is going to school. Parents give money. They have a budget for you to compromise, to give your teacher, your lecturer bribe. The parents take their words to go to miracle centers to write exam. And this child will now come out because it's now a graduate and now become upright and straight. No.
So at the end of the day, that proverb they say, if you throw a stone in the market, you don't know who is going to hit. So it comes down to the fact that whatever steps or things that we do, thinking we're in a small space, it has a boomerang
effect. And that's where we are now as a people. I don't know how we're going to arrest it, because sincerely I'm scared.
Well, let's not end on a scary note, but we have to be on an optimistic note, because if we all pull together, we could just begin to change those things from wherever, lead from where you are. Those things can happen. Thank you for coming on, Honorable Tajuddin Yusuf. We're back in a moment, but Business Money comes up now.
Well, hello, welcome to Business Morning, the TGIF trading day right here in Lagos, Nigeria. Let's get to the top stories that set your agenda now. We're seeing oil prices extending gains today from yesterday, heading for a weekly uptick of more than 4% as Ukraine war has intensified, with Russian President Vladimir Putin warning of a global conflict. And we're seeing the impact on commodities now. $74.33 a barrel. That's for Brent crude, 0.1%. Even though we saw the dollar index, as the DXY, hit a new high, and normally when you see a stronger dollar, commodities go the opposite direction, but we're seeing geopolitics popping up. The oil market, $70.23, that's for the US grade WTI, leaving that $60 range for now, 0.2%. Both contracts jumped more than 2% yesterday, and are set to cap gains of more than 4% this week, the strongest weekly performance since late September, as Moscow has stepped up its offensive against Ukraine after the US and Britain allowed Kyiv to strike Russia with their weapons. All right, let's look at other markets now. We see the FX market. Definitely for the close yesterday was quite an interesting one, a big 1.71% jump there for the NFM window. On the flip side, we see the NAFEX window that closed weaker, 0.73%, 1,693 naira 36 kobo to the dollar for the NAFEX window. For the NFM window, 1,658 naira. So we see a strengthening there. But will it be a positive week? We'll definitely find out at the close of trade. That's later today, if this is not snapped. To other news now, a new survey by the National Bureau of Statistics shows that 62.4% of Nigerian households are food insecure, struggling to access nutritious or preferred foods due to financial constraints. The findings are contained in the NBS 5th edition of the General Household Survey panel, covering about 4,715 households nationwide. The report highlights a sharp rise in food insecurity, with concerns about food sufficiency increasing from 36.9% in 2019 to about 62.4% in 2023. And it's also reported that households are eating fewer types of food. It's 60.5% consumed less than needed. That's less food than is 60.5%. Households eating fewer food types. That's 63.8%. Price hikes impacts 71%. The survey also examines migration, remittances, early childhood developments, and climate shocks. And definitely we know the MPC is meeting next week, so they will take this definitely into consideration. I did tell you it was a budget season, and we see in Lagos State, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu presented over 3 trillion naira for the 2025 fiscal expenditure to the State House of Assembly for approval. Governor Sanwo-Olu says the 2025 budget speaks to the state government's vision of balancing the pressing needs of the people in the areas of health, education, security, with the undeniable responsibility of securing the future of Lagos residents. Take a listen.
The Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, makes his way into the Lagos State House of Assembly chamber to present the year 2025 budget estimates to the lawmakers. The year 2025 budget, called Budget of Sustainability, is a proposed size of over 3 trillion naira. With a total revenue of over 2 trillion, deficit financing of over 408 billion naira, internally generated revenue of more than 1 trillion, and recurrent expenditure of over 1 trillion naira. The governor says the budget will focus on infrastructure development cutting across different sectors.
Work has commenced on the phase 2 of the Blue Line, which will extend from Mile 2 to Okomaiko. I'm also pleased to note that there has been a recently signed MOU between the Federal Minister of Finance Incorporated, MOFI, to kickstart exploratory work for the development of a 68-kilometer green line, which will connect Marina to the Lekki Free Trade Zone. On our healthcare agenda, ongoing projects which includes the new Massive Street Hospital, of which construction started about a year and a half ago, and which will be the biggest pediatric facility in the whole of Sub-Saharan Africa, is set for completion in the year 2025. The construction also of a 280-bed general hospital in Ojo, and a psychiatric hospital which has a capacity of about 1,000 patients in Ketu is also well underway.
He also appeals to the people to support government policies in order to fulfill the promises made to them.
As we prepare for the approval and implementation of this budget, I urge every of us to play their part in building a Lagos that endures. Please continue to support us. Obey the laws of the land. Pay your tax promptly and in full. Exercise vigilance and time and at all times. And do not hesitate to provide useful information that will keep us all safe and secure.
The State Assembly also gives an assurance of ensuring speedy passage of the 2025 budget proposal.
The Assembly will not delay the passage of the budget, but we will be interested in placing high premium on the need to ensure the interests of Lagosians are protected socio-economically and politically.
The Lagos State government says the 2025 budget is not just a fiscal document, but a blueprint for continuity, resilience, and shared prosperity for every Lagosian.
And now to our first conversation. We see Nigeria has made significant strides in promoting financial inclusion, in recent years. However, despite these efforts, a substantial portion of the population remains excluded from formal financial services. So boosting financial inclusion is crucial for Nigeria's economic growth. And we're trying to get that $1 trillion economy. Now let's identify opportunities and examine strategies for promoting sustainable financial inclusion. And joining me for this conversation, TGIF is Sani Toluwalonpe, is the MD CEO, eTransact PLC. Joining me right here in the studio. It's great to have you.
Good, it's good to be here.
Welcome. So definitely, seeing all that's played out in Nigeria's financial services industry, we've seen a lot of innovations. We've seen people do things that they couldn't do before. Like before you make a transaction, you have to go to the banking hall. But now, I don't remember when last I entered the banking hall. Everything is now, electronic, but there's still issues, at this point. So, talk to me from your viewpoint. Where are we, and what are the opportunities?
Oh, interesting. With financial inclusion, creates a lot of opportunities. Look, Nigeria is a very big country with people. Once you have a large size of people, with the size of Nigeria, then you have so many things to offer them. One of the great things here is financial inclusion, how to get the bulk of the citizens into the financial services ecosystem, to get them included, to do payments, to do savings, to do insurance, credit, all kinds of things that can drive entrepreneurship, drives SMEs, and drive the economy. Now, if you look at some of the things you talked about in terms of the transformation we've seen over time in terms of digital payments, it's crazy. You know, we see that e-transact on a daily basis, transaction growth, seamless payments, and one of the key drivers of this is the investment in technology that allows you to do some of these things seamless. You know, and once you begin to build the trust and confidence in the ecosystem, that's one of the critical factors that will allow people that are excluded to become inclusive and do financial transactions.
Right, and you know, definitely, we're all, you know, aiming and, you know, love the idea of a cashless, you know, system. But, you know, looking at the situation in Nigeria, it seems like the ATMs are not, they're not functioning anymore at this time. You know, go to some, you know, public ATMs, is all covered with dust at this point. So no cash there. And we see POS operators, we see that segment that's growing. They seem to have cash and they collect, you know, transaction fees, you know, for that, which is more expensive than if you were going to an ATM. So how much of that is a risk for financial inclusion? Even though we want a cashless society.
It's not, I won't see it as a risk. It's an enabler. Look, you want to bring people that have never trusted brick and mortar financial institutions into the financial services ecosystem. And then you expect them to go to a complex machine looking like a robot they have no connection with. Meanwhile, you compare that with Mama BC, who has a POS, who sells fish, rice, and medicine, every other thing in that village ecosystem or that rural ecosystem, you see that person. Look, a research was done several years ago about Nigerians and currency. Our culture, I think the research was done in 2012. Our current culture, there is a need to touch currency. So that affects cashless in Nigeria significantly. And it also has to do with trust. Look, you owe me money, or I owe you money. You gave me money a while back, and I have to refund you. I want to look you in the eye as I refund you, so I'm giving you that money. So you don't want any situation where I tell you I've transferred it, you've not seen it, you know? And then I'm like, dude, I've done this. Where is the money? So that trust is critical, and the convenience is critical. POS. There's a trust there because you see the person you're transacting with. Convenient. It's available every time. You can just walk across. You can even call, you know, 10 p.m., 11 p.m., 12 midnight. If you need money, you can call, you know, the Babak Benga who's doing the POS thing. Please, I need 10,000 naira. I'm sending Bola, my daughter, to you. It's convenient. You trust the people. You see them. It's simple. So once you continue to invest in technology that simplifies the access and the equipment and the infrastructure you use to bring people into the digital space of payments, you got it.
So this technological future that we're looking at, there's no cash there. No cash in that future.
There might be some cash. It's a process, because in the more advanced countries that have done a lot more digital payments, there's always cash. You know, you have the depending on the demography. But the reason why this is critical for Nigeria is I've seen some reports where the money in the formal sector is the money in the informal sector is almost about 80% the same size of the money in the formal sector, and that is not captured anywhere, informal trading. So if you think about it, you have 200 million Nigerians, you have 140 million specific, plus or minus some percentages, 140 million specific individuals with mobile phones. Those are people that have access to, that can have access to financial products. That's a big size there. How many of them are actually banked? Based on the BVN data, about 60, 65 million of that 140 million are banked. So you have another 65, 70 million out there in the space that are driving the informal economy. They're driving cash. Bring 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 million of that 70 million into the financial services ecosystem. I'll show you how to create $1 billion business.
$1 billion business.
$1 billion business.
Talking about $1 billion business, we've seen a couple of unicorns come out of Nigeria. So we know the economic headwinds at this point. I know inflation and currency devaluation must be a big, huge scare.
Absolutely.
You know, for startups. You know, at this time. So talk to me. How are you seeing fundraising at this time for most of these startups? Is it getting harder, or are they meeting somewhere in the middle?
Well, it's a mix of both. Look, startups trade on the promise of the solution they've brought into the market space. So at some point, you have to deliver and realize those projections. Investors will always invest in good ideas. Experienced ones will invest in good ideas, but those ideas must come to reality. If they don't come to reality, over time, you create a bubble, everything busts. But you have to understand that in this part of the world, in Nigeria particularly, which is one of the reasons why I think our digital payments muscle is huge globally. It's felt globally. A lot of foreign investment has come into fintech in Nigeria. Fastest growing fintech ecosystem, in Africa. It's because we have created solutions that solve our problems. You just talked about you having to go to bank. Look at one of the products eTransact created several years ago, a pay outlet for school fees. Before, you have to go to the branch of the university, where the university opened its account to pay. Then suddenly you can go to any branch of that bank, and then suddenly you can go to any bank. eTransact transformed that space with our education solution pay outlet, where anywhere, any branch, any bank, you can pay into University of Lagos account. So bringing those type of solutions together over time is what builds the confidence to help us deepen the digitization that we see. And in Nigeria particularly, we've created solutions that have solved our problems. If a solution is solving a problem, it's bankable. You'll get funding, easy. If a solution is not solving a problem and you're still trying to solve a problem, that's where you struggle. I think we have a mix of both, which is why, yes, you see some slowdown in funding, but then you also still see some deep, heavy hitters in funding. Nigeria is a very fertile ground for investment, and I can bet on it absolutely.
And I saw a recent report from STARS, and it talked about private capital looking more towards equity than debt. So they would rather take equity in the company and put their funds forward. So is that a trend we're going to see going forward? That happened in Q3, from that report. So is it that investors just prefer equity at this point?
Well, investors will always prefer equity because it's upside. Equity is full upside. And debt is always cheaper than equity because debt, you take the debt, you pay the interest, you pay it back. All the value created goes to the equity holders. That's the sweet thing about equity. And once you have equity, you're in it for life, especially if it's a bankable project. Once you've invested in equity, you own that, you own the size of that business as long as that business continues to deliver. So I think it's a trend that has been around. It's more, I think people are talking a lot more about it because debt interest has gone, haywire globally. In Nigeria, I'm hearing 40% to take loans.
And we have another rate setting meeting that's coming up next week. Consensus is we might see another hike, going forward. But talk to me about you're a listed company at this time, and definitely investors would like to know the financial health of the company. Q3 results flying all over the place. How was it for you?
Blown away numbers. Look, consistently for the past 16 quarters, eTransact has exceeded its expectations. We started our transformation journey in 2019. We revamped our strategy, focusing on switching as an infrastructure, merchant marketplace, merchant activity, and then the direct-to-consumer, which is our financial inclusion business and our digital bank. So if you look at all of that, we are a switch, a central infrastructure, a backbone for the industry. And we're leveraging that to build merchant acquiring activity, and we're also leveraging that to transform the financial inclusion space. We're leveraging that to build our digital bank, creating several features for, a good demography of Nigerians to do financial transactions.
So somehow you're not affected by most of these headwinds.
Well,
currency devaluation.
Look, it's just like the food business. Funeral, people eat. Naming ceremony, people eat. Wedding, people eat. It's same thing as payments. Every time you're making a payment, you could reduce the frequency or increase the value, but at every point in time, you're making payments.
Right.
We are a switching infrastructure. We sit at the back end of all the debits and credits and all the settlement positions. So eTransact will always be rich.
All right. Thank you so much. And definitely looking forward to more inclusion right here in Nigeria when it comes to financial inclusion. Thank you so much. It was great having your perspective, Mr. Nee Toluwalopeze, MD CEO, eTransact PLC. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thanks, buddy. All the best.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, more conversations there. I'm sure you've been hearing about Fund It Forward. We're going to hear more right after this break. Welcome back. Well, Fund It Forward, the engaging social enterprise competition series, and it's presented by Channels Television. We've had season 1, and season 2 is definitely upon us at this time, and we have change agents, trying to get that 30 million naira grant. Well, joining me to discuss what to expect, we have Neil Oyenekon, the series producer, Fund It Forward season 2 is right here in the studio. Great to have you.
It's a pleasure.
Yes, and I'm going to give you my own pitch right now. So we just end season 2, and you just give me that 30 million. How about that? So talk to me about season 1 and what we expect for season 2.
I think what we found out with Fund It Forward was a new initiative, that was kicked off by Channels Television last year, but it revealed to us the pool of young enterprise that is filled, within, every spectrum of this country. We were able to attract a number of them from all geopolitical zones, and we were able to sort of put their business through a stress test, which enabled us to see which ones are more viable than the others. But what's more interesting in the process is it was more transformational for everybody who was involved. I mean, the price is the price, but really the process is what we're aiming to use to sort of re-engineer young entrepreneurs in this country to understand exactly, what the metrics of building a business is like.
And talk to me about this, the inspiration, for this.
When the time for an idea comes, it certainly grows and it comes to be. The initiative itself was pushed forward by, the CSR president of Channels Television, Zemi Momo. She came up with the initiative and just wanted it fashioned into a TV show that can be used to get into the minds of young people. So I just think it's a homegrown idea, which I think has a fitting timing in the way we're deploying it at this point in time. So through and through, it came from Channels, it's on Channels, and we hope to do great things with it.
All right, I'm sure when it comes to ideas, people come up with different businesses. Talk to me about the most bizarre one you got. Season 1.
The funny thing is, some of the greatest things are already in plain sight. It's just that we kind of overthink sometimes to try and find the right business. We kind of overthink sometimes to find the right formula for it. The gentleman that came with a packaged Abacha business last year, basically won the grand prize of 30 million naira. Not because he did something totally new, but he found a new way of doing something very common. So the ideas themselves, there's tons of them. But what we did realize is the manner in which you deploy them matters very much towards its success. And I think that's what Fund It Forward brings, to the table. It allows people put their businesses, young CEOs, put their businesses through a filter that really helps appropriate, align, and sort of fortify it, ready for the big world.
Quite interesting. Talk to me about how the team, how you find most of these candidates.
Okay. So what we initially did in season 1 was try and find, the circles in which these tribe of people do exist. And when we talk about the type of people, we're looking at people who are very young, but yet conscious about impact investment. So what happens here is we're looking for young CEOs who are not just thoroughbred capitalists who want to make money, which we all do, but more so have interest in impacting on the environment, on the society, on the larger nation within which they exist. Now, this is a special tribe of business people, but amongst this young generation, they're beginning to emerge. So it's something which we identified, with pre-industrial China. No vision solves a country. It's the people that will solve it. And knowing the demographic of Nigeria, you'd understand that the young demographic is the future. So the idea of creating an initiative that sort of engenders, it engenders them, it enables them, and then it empowers them, to grow their business is a key thing at this point in time, whereby we sort of have a bit of a migration issue.
Right, a migration issue, and also a high interest rate environment. So if you're trying to get most of these funds from the banks, you know what to expect,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, looking at, you're going through the process, from season one, your idea and all of that, you meet all those business leaders, you come out, you win the prize. What's post-season like?
Yeah. So one good thing about the initiative is when it was being put together, with the teams at Channels, a key mandate was to make sure that it does have an off-air life, meaning that the program itself is the one, we get to see, we all sort of get entertained by, but more importantly, when we're off-air, they've built in a support mechanism through all the strategic partners to allow every entrant to be able to have access to mentorship, to access to programs that are local, international, and also to be able to sort of use some of their infrastructure to drive their business. And this came from organizations like the CC Hub, Alethea Capital, and Leap Africa, who've all been fantastic partners so far in growing this initiative. So it is more what happens after than what happens actually before, if you get where I'm coming from.
All right, let's look at social investing now.
Yes.
What's the future of that in Africa?
Well, it's something we have to grow because everybody would kind of look up, to the center in Abuja, as far as Nigeria goes, for solutions. But the real solutions are actually the ones which we ourselves deploy. And if every enterprise, if every business found one or two little things that they could use to sort of improve the environment, improve the lives of people, improve the economy, you'd find out that what government will have to do is create enabling policies to help sort of grow that impact. It's not necessarily going to come all the way from the center as we found in other countries. It's actually going to come from within. And I think it starts with all of us. So this new young tribe of enterprise that we're trying to build, we believe it will have a multiplier effect on many other young people who are going into business. But I think the most thing is it's great to make money, but it's even greater to impact with the money you make.
Right. And this week, International Men's Day.
Oh, yeah.
Happy International Men's Day. How important is gender balance?
Okay. In a country like Nigeria or in Africa, predominantly, I think over the past 10 years, what's been evident is there's been this shift, to make sure that there's sort of, a balanced equilibrium in terms of, gender in the corporate world, in business, in sports. But I think what's interesting about what we're seeing is that we probably have, and we're not talking about statistics because I can't pull that right off my head, but we have had quite a positive impact when you actually see this gender balance in the workplace, when you see it in business, when you see it even in sports, you begin to realize that both genders, not to take on one, do bring a lot to the table. And it's important that we encourage it from the very start with young people so that it's something which they grow with, in their ways of life.
Right. I'm talking about the current season at this point. The prize. Talk to me about the prize and who is seeing as a favorite to win this season.
I mean, we try and reiterate the fact that, there's always got to be a prize because something's got to motivate people. But I think the most important thing is what do we learn in the process. But that said, not to rub them off the glory, the grand prize for this year is a 30 million grant, a 15 million naira grant, and a 5 million naira grant, for the respective businesses that make the top finalist. We kind of do think it's more about what you learn, but the money is good, because if your business is successful, it will make way much more money.
And, looking at the current ideas we're seeing, with this season, how much of your interest is picked at this point?
Well, this is the funny thing about young people. They don't think like the generation before them. They're very brash. They're radical.
About Gen Zs? Or?
Well, even if we sort of look at the millenniums down,
right,
they're very sort of, out of the box. And what happened is some of the ideas that came to us, we couldn't even imagine them. I mean, there's a lady who's thinking about how to convert carbon emission into this positive thing, talking about people who are using these big generators, trying to explain that the waste in that generator actually can be turned into wealth. And I'm like, how's that possible? You begin to realize that these are interesting people, and many of those ideas are shortlisted for the season 2. In terms of favorites, I'm sure we will all have one, but I'll encourage us more to watch and find, who appeals to us.
We'll definitely be watching. Definitely. Thank you so much, Neil. Oyineka is a series producer, funded forward season 2, and definitely look out for my pitch. I'm going to give you my pitch right after this show, so we'll just call it a day.
Thank you very much
for coming on.
It's today. A pleasure.
All righty then. So the trading session, that's the TGIF trading session, that's on right now at 1 p.m. I'll give you an update on how it's playing out on most of the global markets we track. That's it from me on Business Morning. I'm Ladi Williams. I hand things over now to the Sunrise Daily team.
Vice President Kashim Shettima arrives at the Council Chamber of the State House, Abuja, for the 146th meeting of the National Economic Council. Governors, deputy governors, ministers, presidential aides are attending the meeting, chaired by the Vice President. On the agenda of the meeting are issues of rural electrification, alternative energy source, and state police, among others. Between January and November this year, the national electricity grid has collapsed at least 11 times, throwing many parts of the country into darkness and crippling business activities. NEC considers this development worrisome as it presses for states' involvement in electricity generation.
Council resolved that Nigeria needs a reformed and diversified electricity system, apart from the one from National Grid. It further observed that by empowering states, accessibility and affordability of electricity can be enabled, ensuring that all regions can effectively meet their specific energy needs.
To expedite action, a 13-person committee made up of governors, ministers and heads of parastatals is constituted and mandated to deepen states' engagement within the Electricity Reform Act 2023. Meanwhile, states are encouraged to partner the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NASENI, for solar energy development and rural electrification.
The Council urged NASENI to help the states' governments in repairing the broken down tractors in different states, and urge them to continue with these great initiatives. Impressed by that, most of the subnational governments has expressed willingness to henceforth partner and patronize NASENI in making sure that all these efforts and initiative of theirs comes to fruition.
NEC also received an update on the establishment of state police.
The Council mandated these remaining states and FCT to make their submissions within the next 1 week, and resolved to present a consolidated state's position on the state police to the National Economic Council at our next meeting.
The Federation account is also presented.
Gentlemen of the press, thank you for your time.
NEC received a presentation by the National Chairman of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission seeking for an alternative funding. From the Presidential Villa, Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
All right, so we've got Dr. Sam Amadi, former chairman of NEC, joining us now to shed some light on what you just heard. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today.
Good morning. Thank you.
Okay, so talk to us about this. NEC having this meeting, They say they're trying to deepen the state involvement in electricity generation. We know there's been a lot happening over time, but this, we imagine, isn't any different from them leveraging on the electricity bill, which was signed into law by the president, isn't it?
Well, if I got it right, I think first there is a change in the electricity regulatory framework now. With the new Electricity Act, the Constitution that I think President Buhari signed, and the new act that President Tinubu signed, the states now have no more encumbrance, no more constraints, no more restrictions in terms of legal regulatory regime. And many of the states, at least about 10 of those states, have applied to NEC to get exemption from federal regulation. So states like Enugu are now fully authorized to create their own electricity market. States like Edo, states like Ondo, Ekiti are almost fully, past the post. Now, what is missing, and that's really what we'll be careful about, is that it's not enough to claim the rights and be given the right to have your own grids. The states are still struggling with the quality regulatory policies. First, understanding the markets, ability to create transactions that are sustainable. If the federal government is struggling, when we're there, they started the reform without proper structural, institutionalization of procedure process. Even when they created NEC, which I chaired, there are still a lot of things that were not done before we went to privatization. So I think that what is the governors should be doing to their platform is to orchestrate capability to develop for them how they can now create regional markets. Many states have gone on their own, Ekiti, Ondo, Enugu, Edo. My sense is that states will struggle to have any viable electricity market. A few states might get it right, but many will fail. And that failure will be colossal. I think we are going on a second era. In 1999, we went bullish on this reform without putting the, carefully thinking through and be more strategic. We went into privatize, and see where we are now. So my sense will first, the states should know that nobody stops them, but they're stopping themselves. Viability should be number one, structure number two. And so instead of all the states feel like they do with everything, airports, states have airports. It's like a brand, everybody goes for the same thing. Some states really shouldn't be having their own state electricity market, or should be having regional. And I think there should be need now to bring the experts together to think it from a strategic national perspective. Even though states have the right, but again, we shouldn't create bedlam, which is what I see happening now.
Shed a little more light on this. I mean, you say the states, some of them will struggle to have a viable market and that they should have on a regional basis. I don't know if that came up in NEC. Anyway, since they have a committee, maybe that committee, listening to narratives like this, may factor it in when they do submit their reports. And imagine I want to apply to all of them across board. So could you just drill that a little more specifically? Which states do you think will struggle, and which area would you suggest should come together? Because now that NEC is, some of them are applying for regulatory oversight and getting it, what should be done and by who or which states?
I think that's an important question. Okay, so I think some states have advantage. Lagos State, for example, has an advantage, served by two discos that are fairly viable than the rest, the Iko and the Ikeja. Lagos has some experience practicalizing the Aeron, even though it didn't work. It has Ebrin, one of the biggest load providers in this market. So he has a much more established networks, whether distribution or transmission. And of course, demographics in terms of customer type. The business districts, they can socialize the losses, they can hike tariffs, they can even create eligible customers to provide financial support for a Lagos electricity market. So Lagos can thrive if they put the right things together. Now, some states, let me give an example without being disrespectful. Take states like Ekiti, Ondo, maybe even Anambra, maybe even Enugu. These are small states.
Okay, thanks, Frozen.
Oh, yes, he is. But, you know, he's raised a very vital issue with the question of capacity. Dr. Sam, Dr. Madi, yes, we lost you for a bit. And I think you were just answering. You were saying that Enugu, Anambra, they are small states. Yeah. So, yes.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, is their size an advantage or a disadvantage? That's where we lost you.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, are you hearing me? I can hear you.
Loud and clear, Dr. Madi.
Okay, so I say a state like Ondo, for example, or Ekiti or Enugu, their supply is small. Enugu receives like 74, 73 megawatts a day. Enugu is doing well now in terms of going ahead. Enugu is number one on this process. So they set up a regulatory commission manned by a very competent person. But the trick will be, how would they?
Oh dear. Just when he was getting to the critical part. Yeah, the trick will be just go and finish that sentence. You are saying I can hear you. You are saying the trick will be how would they do what? How would they? That's what we lost.
How manage? How will they deal with 74 megawatts is too small for a state? So you need to look for how do we get power quick? Number one. Number two, SixYear is there, the transition service provider. How do you create? So some of these states, even if you create states their own market, those markets are small in size, consumer. Many of them are rural communities. Look at our national market, where there's so much losses. Tariffs can't go up because you are going to cause a rate shock. Earnings are low. The socioeconomic indicators, poverty, rural poverty, were less earning power. So what that means, therefore, is that you need some scale to do electricity planning. You need to have customer base that can support, a full commercial electricity market, because you need some business customers who can pay more and take more. You need them to first subsidize the residential. So the point I'm making is that these states are not viable. They're not viable first. Their business processes are not fully accountable and processed in a way that gives confidence to investors. The federal government is struggling to even create regulatory certainty to de-risk the sector. So think about what will happen to states that don't even have those capacities, don't have standardized procedure, policy-wise, capability, the transparency, that's on the governance side. On the physical side, the finance to do some heavy lifting, improve their distribution network. Many of these states have been helped because they are within a national grid. So can you now create your own grid? So I think that what this new move should do for them is to enable some of them take over consumer protection in their state, take over electrification by using renewable energy at a scale that is scalable, small, doable, and then work as group of states within the region, take for example Southwest, take for example South or Southeast, and pull together their market, their regulatory, standardize the regulatory process so that there will be scale. Somebody goes to Southeast, you know that look, he can sell power, he distributes about Enugu. These are contiguous areas that you don't have to have Imo State have their own electricity regulatory commission, Anambra has their own, Enugu has, Abia has, everybody has. And none of these markets are viable in themselves to attract real investment at a scale that you outperform.
I mean, you've touched on some part that I was going to pick up on, because it depends on the kind of structure, the power supply structure that they were going to adopt, which will speak to their viability or otherwise. But since, if I could just follow up on that part where you're talking about them pulling together, Enugu, maybe if we look at population, a little over 5 million. And then Abia, under 5 million. And then they got geometric, Professor Batinaji doing his own there, bypassing the grade. So talk to us, Merle, in terms of if Abia is able to have that, Should Enugu then say, look, we may not necessarily need this, we can go to geometric and then the supply or probably extend to the entire south? Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
Absolutely. So if geometric has a capability, and I think they do, then Enugu will be thinking around how do you converge regulatory framework in both states. So you have incumbent provider in Abia, with maybe capacity to add additional 30, 40, 50 megawatts or 100 megawatts, and then have a franchise area that includes Enugu State. So the point is this. Look at Europe, for example. Countries like the major supplier in the UK is a French-based electricity company. So Europe, because it's a contiguous business, if you like, regional market, you see that most of the service providers, grid managers, transmission networks, are interstate in terms of the crisscross boundaries of countries. And what has helped them is because they have similar converging regulatory framework. The EU competition policy is similar. So you can have multiple accreditation and licensing. You operate in Libya, you can also operate in Enugu, you can also operate in Imo. And so if they take away from the idea of contract set up structure by yourself, like Imo said, the Enugu Disco, you can bid and take over that company and be a what they call a dominant shareholder that enables you now as state governors to inflate the finances and improve the change management strategy and use that structure to provide a much more guaranteed sustainable electricity supply. And again, NEC has done some work. Forget that there's no power, but NEC has done good work in terms of providing regulatory framework, embedded generation regulations, all those things. What I want to see is a more managerial approach rather than this legalistic approach of creating our own market, drafting laws. They're important. But I think from a national development strategy, the federal government should lead the states to come together and say, look, you have this power, but look at the way markets are arranged and structured. Markets do not neatly tie to notions of legality or sovereign Southeast, sovereign Enugu, sovereign Abia. Markets themselves are fluid. So you need to now say, how do you realign this your new power to align with market structure so that you could easily upgrade services, you easily optimize, increment, and then you move on to a scale sustainability. We don't want to have states, okay, balkanize the national grid at the end of the day, darkness in 30% or 40 or 50% of those states, the grid has collapsed. They have brought in some roguish contractors, set up constructions that are not working. I think this new Electricity Act, a new regime, could be either a great boost for electricity or it can be the biggest tragedy, where we now have a country that has 36 or 34 or 32 dark spots where total collapse. And I think it's what pains me, because they need to sit down and structure and do the rigor and plan it and say, yes, let's complain. Southeast, that's the reason why Southeast shouldn't have a single regulator. Through some kind of protocol, let's make the different laws, but those laws come back. And because that's a market that is borderless. There's just no distinction between Ariari and Onitsha market or Ikonowa in Imo State. No distinctions.
I get the point you're trying to make. I mean, from what you've analyzed so far, it does appear that we're dealing with a double-edged sword. It can either, boost the market or, create total confusion. And I think a part of what people would really like to understand is what then will be the role for NERC? Will NERC cease to exist as we currently know it? And if they continue to exist, what exactly will be their role? Will they be overseeing all the other bodies? What will they be doing?
Well, by the time the 36, NEC gives 36 states their legal status as they are planning, then NEC will simply exist in only one way. NEC will just be there to manage the network, transmission network, and to manage FCT, which is the federal territory, and that's all. So NEC will not be like FAC in the US that deals only with interstate transmission services, and then each state will be its own licensor for this group, for duration and all that. So that's what NEC will become actually redundant in that sense of stripping away from regulation across the state and focusing on Abuja and transmission network in terms of TCN, which remains the federal licensee. And that's a tricky one because these states are not going to set up transmission networks, and TCN work is more regional and national than state-based. So if you look at exchanges in Benin or whatever, it serves the region. And so you need to, in my view, align the network, this state-based district to align with the transmission, which is more regional and national. So NEC will regulate TCN and the FCT, and maybe if there are federal interventions in states, maybe NEC can, but primarily NEC will go down to a federal regulator, interstate transmissions and FCT.
Well, some people say maybe the name would then need to change as well to reflect the new status that it will have. But I'm a little curious as to how, wouldn't that be a waste of capacity? Because part of what your questions you're currently raising is the capacity of these state regulatory bodies. We have seen that the number of things that states have taken on, they haven't exactly done. Very few of them have done, if at all, have done an excellent job of it, especially if it has to do with politics. I mean, talk about CX. We're still having conversations around state policing, and there are questions around that area. I do not know whether you think that when it comes to capacity, do you think that states will be able to fare well with the establishment of state electricity regulatory commissions?
I think they should. They should. If they restrict it, there's a realism. First, there are a lot of work states can do on consumer side of it. Issues. So that would be very good. That would be nice if they can do that. But what I don't want them is to assume that because we have a regulating commission, we can make our own rules, we can license discourse. They now think that it's about licensing the same Nigerians who failed in the current, I mean, look, in the federal government, they say if edges fail, why should mothers be so gung-ho? The federal government is failing, in my view. Unfortunately, we are part of that. They're failing. How dare you think that you can easily succeed? So my point is, you can have this regulatory commission, but be careful, realistic, and what they can do a lot of things at the downstream through electrification, and do a lot with consumer protection. They can do a lot also, even licensing off-grid and small modular. But again, they can also take over licensing the discos, but recognize that they need to perhaps collaborate with other states to have the discos operate, improve the disco performance, maybe buy over some of the major shares, and therefore be in a place to put in more efficiency. The real point here is, look, don't be too legalistic. Legal fetishism. We have the law. We can make rules. We can make new regulations. NEC today, we have the best regulatory framework in the whole of Africa. World Bank attests to that. But we don't have power because you don't get back to the managerial business side of it. You have to get the system working, knowing that what we want is first prioritizing their strategy. We want to have more generation capacity to optimize their 6,000, 7,000 megawatts. They need to move to the next level of increasing, expanding the available capacity to take maybe 13,000. They move to the next level of increasing their 30,000 nameplate to 30,000. So this sequencing calls for real diagnostics and the ability to understand how the finance is moving, this market is moving, how everything is moving, so that it don't just stay caught in legalism, or we have a regulator who's created a law. That's my worry. I'm not saying it's bad, they should have it, but be careful that, look, to make this work, you have to go do more than new laws, get more than new bodies, but the ones we created, if you ask me, some of the things we created at the federal level were not needed at the time we did this transaction. Maybe now, you should have started with the basic things of optimizing the performance of NEC, of NEPA. You should have created a workable, commercially and corporately viable entity. When I came to the market, I did the first account of the so-called NEPA. They didn't have any account. Today, they don't even have a credible customer number. Who did the first metering inquiry? So basically, you are running before you can walk. You are creating illusion. You are not really dealing with the real structural things that you need to build a sustainable movement. That's really what I want to care about. Look at China. Look at Egypt. Look at other places. They don't go on that side of reform. new things, new institutions. They basically get the basics right and they take off in a measured and sustainable manner. That's what I want to see. And I think the regional markets could be better for the states to come together and pool resources. And it's a natural market and it creates more incentive for investors too.
We'll definitely expect that committee set up by NEC will be able to at least tell themselves the truth, because they are the ones who are there. They should know that these options are the way to go. Thank you very much indeed for your perspective this morning, Dr. Sam Amadi.
Thank you.
All right. Let's take a look at some messages coming through. Prof. Nahana says, the inebriation of corruption in Nigeria by elected politicians is the despicable desperation for second tenure. If the House had the spine to pass this single tenure bill, it would have been the greatest bill of the 10th Assembly.
Well, Festus Akimboyewa somewhat disagrees. He says there is no guarantee that a 6-year single-term bill, if it was passed and becomes law, would have given us greater political stability. We must begin to think and talk about Nigeria and not the region where our president should come from, period.
Honorable Alalade somewhat disagrees too. He says this 6-year single-term bill for presidents and state governors, if analyzed properly, is a good bill for several reasons. Allows those who occupy the positions to focus on good governance and completing projects, and saves costs on running elections every 4 years.
And Pastor Law Alpha Cross says the 6-year tenure proposed bill would have sailed if there were no appurtenances or clauses that appear to be divisive and dichotomous. Okay. A language of debate.
I know.
But I was enjoying that.
Yeah, and what a way to end the show today, Friday, and the week as well. We cannot thank you enough for watching and sending in your messages, but we will see you again next time. I'm Chamberlain, so have yourselves a very lovely weekend.
It's been a real privilege being in front of your screens this morning. Thank you so much for being a part of ours. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf. Do have a great weekend indeed, and see you later tonight.